Hello there and welcome. Today we're gonna talk about what to look out for when buying a Universal Genève Polerouter. Designed by the legendary Gerald Genter as one of his earliest works, the Polerouter is an absolutely stunning piece, which only gets better due to its micro-rotor caliber. Those details alone make the watch a collector's piece, and the relatively low entry price of around $1,500 only helps the watch out. Now let us look at a few examples of UG Polerouters that are currently on the market and see if they are good or bad examples. Just as a side note, I'm going to look at the most popular version of the Polerouter with twisted lugs and a micro rotor or a bumper caliber. But most of the things and sources I'm going to show can be applied to every version you want. First off, let's look at the obvious parts that often get replaced and are clearly visible, or at least they should be. This is one of those pieces where if you seek a nice vintage watch and not just any Polerouter, I wouldn't even bother looking at it for more than a minute. There are no side views of the watch, and with that you can't see the crown, which is most likely a replacement. The case back is in a very bad shape, and any engraving that it ever had is polished away. Luckily, the seller at least tells us in the description that the crystal and crown are probably a replacement part. At this point, we must visit a Polerouter reference website to truly see if the dial is correct and the watch is at least partially original. I'll link my favorite website for that in the description below. Now we must know the reference of the watch, which can't be found in the ad, but we can derive the reference number from the dial and the movement. We must look at the reference tables, more specifically the Polerouter steel reference table. Then search for date to filter out all the no date watches. Afterwards we can find the watch through the dial and its caliber. After scrolling down for a while, we can find only one 12-section gold dial, and it's paired with the caliber 69 and not 218-9. In the galleries, we easily find the watch, or at least the dial our watch has, with another movement. This means that someone replaced the dial at one point, and that the seller either has no idea or he doesn't want to devalue the watch even more. The first watch was already a total bust, but maybe the next one will be better. Let's look at a Polerouter that costs nearly double of what we've seen before. The spots on the dial aside, the watch face looks good at first glance, if you don't look too closely. This time we also get a side view, and it's getting worse by the second. There are major dents, and the crown is not signed, so it's a replacement part. Usually, the crown should have the same U logo that can also be found on the dial itself, but in this case, it's just blank. Once again, to find out more, we need the reference site. On the website, we first look at the reference table for steel watches, and then only look at pieces with a 138 SS movement and a gold-capped case. From the second column, we then can tell that the watch must be a reference 2214, and with this number we can look at the reference galleries. Starting with the 2214 gallery, it's now a game of memory, and in the S-H 2214 section we find pieces that quite look like the one we want to find. But one thing is off, and if you don't have a lot of experience with Polerouters, this way of checking watches mostly keeps you from buying bad pieces. If you look for the dial the watch has, there are two options. One version that has only arrow hands and the other one has only normal hands. Now it could be either of those watches, depending on which hand has been replaced, but there is not one Polerouter that has mixed hands. This works in all directions. So if you have the reference number from the case back of the watch, you can check if it's the right movement. If the serial number, which can also be found on the case back, is in the range of the reference number, and most importantly, if the dial is original. As a last example, here is a completely over-the-top Polerouter Deluxe. The case looks beautiful. The dial is in perfect condition, and again it starts with the crown that is not signed. At least this time the case spec still shows the reference and serial number of the watch. After looking into the 18K reference table, we see that the serial number is within the range of the reference 10357-1 and that it should have a 215 micro rotor movement. Sadly, the seller doesn't show any pictures of the movement, but if you were to buy the watch, you should ask for these pictures if the seller is a watchmaker. In the reference gallery we can find the watch with exactly the reference number from the back of the watch, and the dial fits perfectly. Even with bigger sellers and a crazy high price like we have one here, it's not certain that everything is correct. Now I don't want to make this video too long, and because of that I can't go into detail with everything that can be wrong. In general, it's mostly the same for all vintage pieces, and this is also why this kind of knowledge will always be helpful to you. I'm just gonna give you 2 more facts you should look out for and a few resources regarding redials. The micro rotor movements of the Polerouter series are stunning, but the rotor tends to become a bit loose and grind on the case back. This can easily be fixed, but if you have no interest in servicing a watch, you should look out for it. It's audible and you can see it in pictures of the movement, like this one for example. The otherwise uni-colored rotor has patches where the coating has come off due to the friction with the case back. And most of the time you can also see it on the case back itself. Universal Genève did sign their acrylic crystals with their logo, etched in the middle on the inside. You may not be able to see it if the seller didn't have a crazy good camera, but feel free to ask the seller about it, even if they aren't a watch person. Everyone can find it if they know what they're looking for. If you didn't buy a vintage watch before, you may not have seen a redial yet, but I promise you will. This whole topic can become quite difficult, but to make it short, if the writing on the dial just doesn't look right in comparison to others, or in general, stay away from the piece. I'll put 2 links in the description for you. One is an article by Houdinki that is really well written with dozens of pictures that show redials in detail. The other one is a forum thread, which takes a deep dive into Polerouter dials, logos, fonts, with a ton of samples. If you shimmy along with these websites in mind or open, you'll be able to navigate around most of the redials out there. None of these websites I showed here are perfect, and neither is this method of evaluating a Polerouter, but I hope it helps you to get around most of the hurdles. Did you ever fall for a falsely advertised watch or one with wrong parts? I certainly did once, and I learned from it. If you liked the video, please leave a like, and if it wasn't your cup of tea, tell me why in the comments down below.